You ever notice that voice in your head? You know, the one that's always on, narrating everything, judging, worrying. It just never seems to stop. Well, today we're diving deep into a book that's all about finding some peace and quiet in the middle of all that noise. It's Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And it's not really a book of ideas you're meant to just think about. It's more like a guide for stepping out of the suffering we create for ourselves.
Now, for Eckhart Tolle himself, this wasn't just some casual throwaway thought. This was a relentless loop playing over and over in his mind. He was 29 years old, and he was on the absolute brink, in this state of deep suicidal depression. It was this intense, unbearable hatred for his own existence.
And then, right in the middle of that mental storm, a question just popped into his head that changed everything. If I can't live with myself, does that mean there are two of me? I mean, think about that. Who is the I and who is the self that the I can't stand anymore? This question was so strange, so profound, it basically short-circuited his thinking mind. And in the silence that came after, his real consciousness just separated from that unhappy story of Eckhart. It triggered a spiritual awakening that would completely alter the course of his life. Tolle's story, as dramatic as it is, really points to something we all share, right? That compulsive, nonstop voice inside our own heads. That little narrator that for most of us literally never, ever shuts up. Yeah, that constant mental chatter, the endless stream of judging and worrying and speculating. We've grown up just assuming that this is us. We think that voice is who we are. But what Tolle argues is that no, it's not. It's more like an affliction, a kind of mental pollution that we've completely mistaken for our own identity. Okay, so if that voice isn't our true self, then what is it? Well, Tolle gives this false self and the mental prison it builds all around us a name we've all heard before, the ego. The ego is sort of a phantom self. It's built out of all our memories, all the labels we've picked up, and all the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. But, and this is the most important part, the ego absolutely cannot survive in the present moment. Its entire existence depends on yanking our attention into the regrets of the past or the anxieties about the future. So, what happens when we're trapped by this ego? Well, Tolle estimates that a staggering 80 to 90% of the average person's thinking isn't just repetitive and useless, but because it's so often negative, it's actually harmful. It's this massive, constant drain on our energy, on our life force. And the main tool the ego uses to keep us trapped is what Tolle calls psychological time. Now, this is totally different from chronological time, clock time. That's the stuff we use to make appointments or learn from our mistakes. Psychological time, though, that's the heavy burden of past regrets and future fears. It is the fuel the ego burns to keep its little drama of suffering going. So, if we're all stuck in this mental prison of psychological time that our ego has built, how in the world do we get out? Turns out there's only one escape hatch. I mean, really think about this for a second. The past, it only exists as a memory trace in your mind, right now. The future, it's just an idea, something you're imagining. Neither one of them is actually real. The only thing that is ever real, the only place where your life is actually happening, is this very moment. It's right now.
So what even is a problem? Tolle says a problem is basically just dwelling on a situation when you don't have the ability or the intention to do anything about it right now. In other words, a problem needs that psychological time to even exist. If your full attention is right here, in the now, can a problem really survive that?
Okay, so this is the practical part. How do we actually do this? How do we get into the now? Well, Tolle gives us this beautifully simple but incredibly powerful technique. It's all about becoming the observer or the watcher of your own mind. The whole practice just starts with listening to that internal monologue. And the key is, don't judge it. Don't try to stop it. Just notice it, like you're listening to the sound of traffic outside. And pretty quickly, you'll have this incredible realization, wait a minute, if I'm the one listening to the thoughts, then I can't be the thoughts. I have to be something else. That awareness in the background, that silent watcher, that, Tolle says, is your true self. Now, as you start to watch your mind, you're probably going to notice another force in there, something pretty powerful. Tolle calls it the pain body. Just think of it like this. It's the buildup of every strong negative emotion from your entire life that you never fully felt and let go of. It usually just sits there dormant, but every once in a while it wakes up and it gets hungry for more pain. And here's the thing, you can't fight the pain body. You can't argue with it. That's actually like feeding it. The only way to dissolve it is to shine the light of your own conscious attention on it. You just notice the feeling inside you without getting tangled up in whatever sad story it's trying to sell you. By watching it without judging it, you cut off its food supply, which is your identification with it, and it just starts to dissolve. So what happens when you start to break free from that thinking mind and that old pain body? Well, a totally different quality of life starts to emerge. It's a state that Tolle calls the joy of being. And this brings up a really important difference between pleasure and joy. See, pleasure is always external. It comes from getting that promotion, eating that great meal. It's always temporary, and it always has an opposite, pain. But joy arises from inside you. It's that deep, vibrant peace that you feel when you connect with the present moment. And here's the crazy part, it has no opposite. So what does a life lived in presence actually feel like? It's not about becoming some emotionless robot, not at all. It's about finding this unshakable peace that's always there, just underneath the surface of life's ups and downs. And your actions actually become more effective and intelligent because they're coming from a place of clarity, not from all that ego-based fear and neediness. Ultimately, this is what all of this is pointing toward. I know the word enlightenment can sound like some kind of superhuman achievement that's impossible to reach. But in this context, it's actually much, much simpler. Enlightenment is just your natural state once you stop identifying with your mind. It's simply the end of the suffering that you create for yourself. So we'll leave you with this really powerful question from the Zen tradition. Just for a second, right here, right now, as you're hearing my voice, just ask yourself, what does this moment lack? And don't try to answer it with your thinking mind. Instead, just feel into the moment itself. And you might just discover in that quiet space that it doesn't lack anything at all.